Good morning. I think the church can heal the world, and I think we can heal the world, but it takes work. But I think that's what we're here to do. We hear these stories about healing, both in the Old Testament lesson and in the Gospel, and we think one of two things. We either think it's really far away, it's 2,000 years ago, and it's something to be studied academically, it really doesn't have any bearing on my life, or we might think there's something going on in my life right now that needs healing, that I need healing for, or a loved one needs healing for, and therefore it's almost too close to the bone, and therefore I really can't get too close to it because it would hurt too much. So I want to try to straddle that middle ground a little bit and look at these readings in terms of what we are to be about today in the world. First of all, the New Testament lesson, the Gospel lesson, tells a story of Jesus and people with lepers and leprosy. The translation is unfortunate because it calls them lepers. The actual translation of the word is persons with leprosy or some skin-related illness that caused them to be shunned by the religious community and deemed unclean and sent out to the margins of the society. So it's really persons with some kind of ailment. So Jesus comes into this town, and as he reaches the margins of this village, the people on the outside are the unclean ones. So those are the first ones that he encounters. And they call out to him, they say, "Jesus, Master, heal me, cleanse me, make me whole." And Jesus says, "Go and show yourself to the priest." Now this is fascinating because that's what they had to do to get back into the community. That was the hoop they had to jump through. Once they were healed, that wasn't enough. They had to go show themselves to the priests. And the priests would then let them in. Right? That was the priest's role. So Jesus says, he kind of jumps ahead, but before healing them, he says, "Go show yourselves to the priests." And they go, and they were healed. Supposedly they were healed right away because they're on their way and they're already being healed because they're going to see the priests. But one of them turns back, sees Jesus, sees that he is healed, and goes and gives praise to God. And Jesus sees him. The verb to see is an important one in Luke because it not only is a recognition, a visual recognition, but it's also a spiritual acknowledgement of something that's going on when we see people, right? Now, some of you have a Starbucks addiction. I'm just going to name it, all right? Some of you go to Starbucks weekly. How many went to Starbucks this week? Handful? Okay, more than 9 o'clock. Good. More of you admit it. Honesty is the first step, really. 9 o'clock was like, no, we don't go to Starbucks. No, we don't do that. So you went to Starbucks. Maybe more of you heard about their PR stunt this week, which was to try to, maybe create some unanimity, some friendliness by getting people to buy each other coffee. Did you hear about this? So what they do is you go into Starbucks, and if you buy someone a cup of coffee, if I were to buy Joan a cup of coffee, my next cup of coffee would be on the house. They would get me like a tall beverage of my choice or something like that, all right? But here's the thing. You couldn't go in there and put down $20 and say, "Hey, the next 4 drinks are on me." Because what they wanted you to do is to say to Joan, "I bought you this coffee." And for Joan to be able to say, "Thank you." And then for Starbucks to be able to say to you, "Here's your free coffee." What they're doing is they're creating relationships, right? They're creating community. They're connecting people. And let me tell you, I hate it when corporations out-church the church. I hate it when they do what we're supposed to do, right? I mean, aren't we supposed to be doing that? Aren't we supposed to be the ones doing things for other people, trying to create connections and build bridges between people? Isn't that part of our mission? And yet Starbucks beats us to the punch. They're the ones blowing up on Twitter, not us. You know? I get jealous of things like that. And it comes back to that verb to see. Because the reason they want you to buy someone a cup of coffee is so that you can enter into a relationship with that person. So that you can somehow know something about that person. Maybe that person is on their way to a funeral. Maybe that person now has to decide about end-of-life measures for their parents. Maybe that person has been laid off or furloughed, and they don't know how much longer they're going to get to go to Starbucks. By you giving them a cup of coffee and saying, I bought this for you, you're reaching out to them. And maybe there's a conversation that starts after that. Maybe you get to know that person. And maybe they open up to you. And maybe you open up to them. But either way, something godlike happens in that moment. Why does Starbucks get to do that and we don't? The second part is, this thing with Naaman. Naaman in the Old Testament lesson was this king, and he expected healing to come to him in this grand and miraculous and spectacular fashion. Because he was a king, and kings are used to this kind of behavior. They're used to things being pyrotechnicized and blown up with strobe lights and loud music. That's what kings like. That's what makes them kings, right? And so when he gets word that to be healed of his disease, all he has to do is go wash in this river. That's all he has to do. It's that simple. He says, nothing from God can be that simple. And of course, if you hear it with the ears of a child, you know that the best things in life from God are those simple things, right? Those ordinary things. That's where God creeps in the things that sometimes we don't really give measure to, we don't really pay attention to. That's where God comes into our lives, maybe the most fullest. And so when he comes and he says, I will bathe, but nothing's going to happen, and he is healed, he's amazed because something great came out of something so ordinary. And again, I go back to this example of corporations. Some of you know, some of you drink beer, some of you don't, but if you do drink beer, you might know of New Belgium Brewing Company in Fort Collins, Colorado. And they put out a beer called Fat Tire. It's a really good beer. It's an amber ale. And anyway, they were going to build a brewery in Asheville, North Carolina. So they went to the city of Asheville and they said, we're going to build a brewery in your town, but we need a place to build. And of course, Asheville's thinking, well, where are the best sites? Where are the most advantageous locations for this new brewery to be built? Because they want to put it on a bike path and they want to have a nice patio out there and landscape it and everything. And the brewer said, show us where your brownfields are. Do you know what a brownfield is? A brownfield is a site that's been contaminated by toxic waste and needs extensive cleanup fees. It's going to cost you more to clean the site up than it will be to build. And you're not really going to turn a profit for a long time. So why would New Belgium Brewing Company do this? Why wouldn't they try to build on a nice site and make the most money they could? I was thinking about this week, and I went on their website, and they have a frequently asked questions about their new brewery. And one of the questions is about using the site of a brown field. And they said, we want to redeem the land and save it from being lost and give it good purpose. And I thought, man, I love it when corporations out-church the church. I love it with it because they're using our language. They're using church language, redeeming what was lost. That's what we do. That's what we talk about every week, right? And here they are actually doing it, actually sinking profit into this land that once was lost, that was going to be forgotten, that was never going to be used again, and saying, we're going to use this for something good. Amazing. And we can do the same things. Maybe not with brown fields, but maybe. But think about it this way. All of us are broken in some way, shape, or form. All of us have some kind of brown field in our souls. All of us have something that we would rather leave behind, that we'd rather forget, that we'd rather just put a tarp over and not have to deal with. But in order for us to be fully redeemed and fully whole, we need those brown fields. We can't forget them. We have to reclaim them, and we have to use them. One of my favorite theologians that I'm listening to now is Lily Allen, and she wrote this song, and one of the verses says, I want to be rich, I don't want lots of money. And I think a lot of us can get with that because maybe the dreams of a lot of money have flown away, and that's not going to happen for us. But we still want a rich life. We still want a life of richness. And I think that is a life of wholeness. I think it's a life where we feel like we're complete, where we feel like we are fully present and fully engaged with whatever is going on in our lives. And as long as we have parts of ourselves, parts of our souls that we think are irredeemable and lost forever, it's probably not going to happen. We're always going to be conflicted. We're always going to be struggling or staggering to find some measure of balance. And this is part of what God is doing in the world. Redeeming these sites for us. Redeeming these parts of ourselves that were once forgotten. This is God's mission in the world, to redeem and to reconcile and to resurrect. And part of God's vision for the world is that we lead lives of wholeness, lives that are rich with meaning and responsibility. I think the church can do this. I think we, as St. Margaret's Church and as individual people here, can take a responsibility and take an active role in that work in the world. I think that's what God would have us do. Jesus healed, and we can also heal. We can also be healed. This is part of what God's vision for the world is. I mean, really, why let corporations do all the work and have all the fun? We need to get some of that. We need to be doing that work, redeeming what was lost, creating connections between people in the community. That is our work in the world. We are given this mission. We are given this vision here at St. Margaret's by God. And God gives us the strength to do it every day. Amen.